Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast. And this weekend is the Innistrad Midnight Hunt pre-release. Players around the world will be building sealed decks at home, or if they feel comfortable, in stores to play Magic against other people. And it all starts with one of these, the pre-release packs for Innistrad Midnight Hunt. What's inside them, and how should you build your sealed deck? Well, let's dig in today. All right, so here we go. Here is an Innistrad Midnight Hunt pre-release pack. It looks like this. We're gonna crack this thing open and see exactly all the goodies that are inside one of these. Now, you can find these at your local game store, so go on in while supplies last, talk to them about getting one, and either play in a pre-release event, or if you just want to take one home and play on Spell Table with your friends, you can go do that too. So it has this little outer sleeve on it, like this, with this fun little werewolf on the back. And I love all the orange bands on the releases for the set, where you have it's saying what event it's for or what kind of project it is. Just really stands out. Gets me in the spooky mood. And then we get into this. So here is our deck box right here. You can actually use this thing as a deck box, which is pretty cool. We crack it right open, and here's everything we find. First things first, you get a D20 in here. So nice spin down. You can go from 20 and just rotate it all the way down, 19, 18, 17, 16, and so forth. Keep track of your life on this, and it's got the expansion symbol right there in the 20 slot. We, of course, get our pre-release card, which is one of any stamped mythic or rare in the set, and we got Burn Down the House. I think Melissa DeTora designed this card. A sweeper that can also make you some tokens. That's kind of cool. You'll note that there's this stamp in the left-hand corner here that shows off what year you got this in. We went to a new pre-release stamp recently just to help mitigate in case there are any date changes around the pre-release and things like that. All right, and then if you crack this open, which I'm going to do, it's not the only thing you get in here, though, because you also get, set that aside for a second, you get your pre-release card, which is great, but then you also get some checklist cards. So, of course, in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, there's a lot of double-sided cards, and you can keep track of what they are on these. If you don't want to play with sleeves, you can write the names of the cards down here, any other information you need about the rules text, and put these into your deck inside sleeves instead. They've got magic backs on them, so they fit in with everything else just fine. There's also this day-night card right here, which is going to be pretty important if you're playing with any werewolves in your deck, because this will keep track of it as day or nighttime using the brand new day-bound mechanic, so super important. Okay, we also have an insert. Oh, don't want to show off that arena code. We also have an insert. I need those packs. Shows off on one side this fun little Harvest Tide Begins poster. Pretty cool piece of artwork here. You can read what it says. The return of an ancient tradition. After centuries, we shall once again celebrate life and community with a Harvest Tide festival. Do your part, help decorate, then celebrate. Notice, lone revelers have been reported missing. Travel only in groups. Do not wander off alone. I'm sure it's fine. Don't worry about it. Then on the back side, you have some good information for a pre-release deck. So I'm going to run through some of this today, but about 15 through 18 creatures, 5 to 8 other spells. You want a mana curve. This is something I'll get into in a little bit, but you want to try and play a card at every step of the curve if you can. And then about 17 lands. 17 is kind of the default in limited. So you want to find about 23 cards you're going to play with. And I'm going to get into this in just a moment. And then just to go through some other things, we've got this, which on the other side, I'm not going to show it off to you because it will give away the secrets. But there's a code on here for some stuff on Magic the Gathering Arena. Show you the other side, you'll see the code, and well, that's no good. But this gives you 6 Innistrad Midnight Hunt booster packs, which is pretty cool. We've got a little insert here with the moon on it. Once again, it's probably fine. And then we've got 6 packs right here of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. I just want to crack them open and kind of talk about what I'm thinking. So this is what you're going to use to actually build your sealed deck, are these 6 packs. So the cards that you get in here, you'll use to build your 40-card deck, and once again, you're going to want about 23 of them. So what I normally do is I crack open my packs. I look through them because I can't resist, but I sort them by color. So I'll look, just kind of go through the pack and, get excited about some of the cool cards I open, but also just sort them by color here so that you can easily identify what you have. And that way, when you go to build your deck, you'll kind of know what you have, what you're missing, and so on and so forth. And you get a token here at the back and a day and night card. What was our rare? Ooh, a nice showcase old stick figures. That's cool. And just for those who want to see them, here's what these look like in person. They are just so gorgeous. The Eternal Nightlands. Oh, good pack for Booster Fun. We got 3 Booster Fun cards in this pack. These 2 plus the Dawnheart Rejuvenator. I'm just gonna crack all the packs open on camera. Why not? You know, the brand new set. You can check out all the cool cards we're opening up. Mountain cool, but I'm gonna kind of put everything that I'm not gonna need to build my deck, all the tokens and lands and such, over in a little pile here, because I'm not gonna need those for this portion. And then normally what I do is I sort by color like this, and I should probably have an Uberg order, or someone in the comments is gonna be like, dude, what's going on? What I do is I put all my cards sorted by color down here, and then I'll put my gold cards up here and my artifacts up here too, just as little reminders of what's going on. And then I'm gonna keep opening them up and just sorting them like this. So, you know, getting all the commons sorted into their respective colors. And then in a moment, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the cards that we have and try and figure out which colors we want to play. Now, hey, it's Delver of Secrets. There's a good buddy back to the fray again. What we're going to do here in a second is we're going to try and pick which colors to play. And what's... ooh, here's another one of these nice Eternal Night lands. Never going to get tired of seeing these. Is we're going to want to figure out what our deck is. Now, we're going to want to pick colors that have enough depth, so enough strong cards we want to play with in Limited. We're also looking for stuff that has... flying is really important, or other kinds of evasion, because games often stall up and go long, and having access to flying creatures or menace or things like that, trample, really important. We're going to want removal spells. Hey, Giza. Sweets. Cool. Removal, super important in Limited. Removal is kind of like the backbone of the limited experience. And of course, any bomb rares that we're really excited about. And sometimes, you know, it'd be like, oh, there's a specific color I opened a bunch of really strong rares in. I want to play those colors. Or I just found a bunch of removal. I want to play those colors. And so by sorting everything by color, kind of just, whoa, Arlen, this deck's turning out sweet already. Maybe it's time for a little werewolf action. I've never opened the packs for this process live on camera, but it's pretty fun. These are actually the first Innistrad Midnight Hunt packs that I have opened up, just ever in my life, which is pretty cool. Normally, we're still working from home. Normally, when I'm in the office, we get some packs in, we all go around and open them, and it's a fun time. But now we're all working from home, so I don't have that opportunity currently. Hopefully, we're able to go back in the office sometime soon once we all feel comfortable doing so. But all right, and then one last pack here. So not too bad, not too shabby for my first ever Innistrad Midnight Hunt booster packs. Now, one other thing that's really important about the draft environment you should know before you get to deck building is one thing we do is build in little archetypes to the colors to help put you down the path of what you could play and how cards will synergize together. So in the packs, we include these little draft archetype cards that kind of tell you what the different 2-color pairs are. You don't have to play these themes when you're drafting or when you're building a sealed deck, but they just help point you in a certain direction. So to kind of run you down them, the 5 allied colors here, white, blue, blue, black, red, green, and green, white, are all tribal, focused around spirits, zombies, vampires, werewolves, and humans, the tribes of Innistrad. Now, there's a gameplay style that they all suggest, like zombies is going to use the graveyard, vampires is going to be aggressive, and so on. But, at their core, there's a bunch of tribal stuff going on here. The enemy colors are the ones that might not be as obvious. In white-black, we've got a sacrifice deck where you make some tokens and then sacrifice it to cards that, that allow you to sacrifice a creature to kill off one of their creatures or give you another bonus. Blue-red is spells. It's a pretty classic blue-red archetype, many of you have probably played before, where you get to cast spells to trigger your abilities on your creatures. Black-green has a bit of classic life and death stuff going on here, where your creatures might be sacrificed or die, which will turn on some of your morbid-like cards. Or you can, raise dead stuff, do some self-mill to your advantage. Red-white is just a pretty nice aggro deck. You can build up a quick curve and kill people off. And then green-black is actually flashback, and flashback matters, and it gives you a lot of long game options. So anyway, you can always keep these archetypes in mind as you're building if you need to. So now we've got our piles, and now I'm not going to show the next part because it's going to take me a moment to actually look through all the cards and think about it. But what you want to do is, what I'm going to do here is look through, think about my colors, and look for, once again, 3 things. I'm going to be looking for bombs, really strong rares that I want to play with, or just strong uncommons, flying, evasion, and removal. Those are the 3 biggest things that I'm often looking for. There's also some stuff like mana curve, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, let me try looking through these cards and seeing what we got. Okay, so after narrowing it all down and looking through my various colors, I've settled on 3 different ones that I think are the strongest. That's red, green, and black. I kind of just did it by looking and figuring out which cards that I wanted to play the most, where a lot of my removal was, and where my best creatures were. Now from here, what we're going to want to do is really narrow it down to 2 colors, or you can play 2 colors with a splash, which is what we're going to do. So what that means is you're basically playing 2 colors as your main colors. You don't really want to stretch your entire deck across 3, but you can play 2 colors as your base and then play a little bit of a 3rd color. And what you often are splashing for in that 3rd color are some of your strongest cards and your removal spells. That way you can still get the strong removal in there and still get a bomb that you really like in your deck, but you don't have to commit to fully playing that color. If you're going to splash, things that you really want to look for are mana fixing. You might end up playing cards like this, Crossroads Candle Guide, which will give you a way to find other colors of mana if you need to. So, I've got that card, for example. I've got this Dawnheart Rejuvenator, for example, to help fix my colors a little bit, just to make sure that we can get that additional color if we want. Now, one thing I always keep in mind, you don't want to splash for your mana fixing. So like don't splash green to help fix your mana. That's always a rough idea. But I'm going to flip through my cards a little bit here and just show you a little bit of what attracted me. So in black, this Lord of the Forsaken is a pretty big bomb. It's a 6 mana, 6/6 flying trample with other relevant text. But the 6 mana, 6/6 flying trample is already very strong. It's got that double evasion actually, but flying being the big one. And you can always just mill your opponent a bunch of cards with it. It's got some good removal spells in Olivia's Midnight Ambush and Defenestrate, which I'm glad we finally got to write on a card. It also just has a pretty good spread of creatures, right? Even the medium level creatures like Siege Zombie are pretty nice. And I think this is going to do some good stuff for us. Plus you get this other bomb in Giza as well. You get some evasion in the Vampire Interloper, and so on. The next, looking at green, first of all, green-red is very attractive because you get Arlen and Kessig Naturalist. Now, we're probably not going to play the Naturalist because we're going to splash red in this deck, but we are going to play the Arlen. And then in black-green, I want to note for gold cards, we've got Old Stick Fingers and Grizzly Ghoul, which are both great green-black gold cards. And often your gold cards will help point you toward a color or a direction, which is really nice. So those are some of the cards that attracted me multicolor-wise, but also there's a few strong cards. Defend the Celestis is just a really strong way to distribute counters among a bunch of your creatures, and it's a pretty good combat trick there. You get to put 2 counters on one thing, 1 on another thing, and so on. I like anything that gives me card advantage, and this card gives you a creature and then lets you flash it back to find another creature, which is really nice. There's just a pretty solid curve. There's this card, which is a 4 mana 4/4 essentially, and then later in the game flashes back into another 4/4. It's like a Call of the Herd kind of thing. There's this removal spell here in Duel for Dominance, which is pretty nice. And then just some solid creatures. It helps fill out your curve, which I'll get into in a moment. Timberland Guide, nice 2 mana, kind of 2/2 that can flex this extra point of power if you want. There's this Dawnheart Rejuvenator and some combat tricks. And then in red is interesting in that it's got some solid removal. We've got Moonrager Slash, Cathartic Pyre, and Burn the Accursed. And then Ardent Elementalist, which can get a spell back, and it's pretty nice. But the rest of our red is kind of just okay. All right, there's this Brimstone Vandal, which is good if you're flipping between day and night enough, which a red-green deck is sometimes. There's this Lambholt Harrier, which is a nice 2-drop. But on the whole, our red's not that strong. So what we're going to do is we're going to play green-black and splash a bit of our red removal. Now I'm going to snap my fingers, and when we come back, you will see the finished deck. Let's do it. So here is my finished deck, and I kind of want to explain exactly what these piles are all about and how it's working. How I sort my cards when building my deck, all 23 the ones I'm going to play with, is I put the cards I'm going to play on curve, often creatures, but not always creatures, up here in mana cost order. I've got all my 2-drops here, all my 3-drops here, 4-drops here, and so on and so forth. The reason why I do that is that way I know that on that turn, these are the options for cards I have to play and how likely I am to find them. And the reason this is important is what's called a mana curve. The idea being is you want plays throughout the entire game. You don't want everything to be really cheap and early. You don't want everything to be expensive and late. You want to try to be able to play things every turn throughout the entire game if you can. One of the easiest ways to win a game of Limited is just play a 2-drop, a 3-drop, a 4-drop, and a 5-drop all in a row, curve out perfectly, and attack and kill your opponent. More games are won that way than probably any other way in all of Magic. Then what I do down below is I put all my spells that I'm not going to play on that turn most of the time. So I'll give you some good examples. So most spells go down here, so like removal spells. I'm not going to play Moonrager's Slash on turn 3 in a lot of games, or Defenestrate. This gets a card back from a graveyard, so I'm not playing this on turn 3 in most cases. A card like a Raise Dead effect, like a Crawl from the Grave, I'm not playing on turn... Well, I'm definitely not going to play it on turn 1. There's no target, but be very surprised if I play that on turn 1. On the flip side, you've got your creatures up here, you know, on their mana cost curve. You've got your planeswalkers up here, or artifacts you might want to play on curve as well. And then the other thing that I think a lot of folks often don't put up in this top area and miss, which is really important, is just spells you will play on that turn. So for me, tapping at the window is a good example. This is a spell, it's not a creature, but you're happy to jam this right away. You'll play this on turn 2 if you have the mana for it. So I'm actually counting this as a 2-drop because I can play it on turn 2. It'll give me some card advantage with a straight face. So what's going on with this deck? Well, I'm going to talk through my mana curve here a little bit. So, I'd say that my 4 and 3 drop spots, my 2 and 3 drop spots aren't about the right spots. I could probably go for like one more 2-drop, maybe one more 3-drop potentially, but this is totally fine. And in sealed, you kind of got to work with what you have. So for my 2 drops, we've got Vampire Interloper, we've got Siege Zombie, we've got the Outland Liberator, which, if you aren't familiar, transforms into the Frenzied Trap Breaker. And then we've got Tapping at the Window. And I could probably go for one more creature here. I ended up cutting Timberland Guide. It was my last cut, but just how it is. And then on 3, we've got Arrogant Outlaw, we've got Hobbling Zombie, and we've got Covert Cutpurse, which on the flip side turns into Covetous Geist. You'll know that this has a graveyard ability, as does some of the other cards we're going to be looking at here. Because in black-green, you're going to be self-milling yourself a bit, and cards that have effects from your graveyard are going to be extra good, because if you self-mill past them, you're essentially just drawing free cards here. The slot I want to talk about the most is my 4-drop spot. 5 is more than I would normally want to do for 4 drops. Normally I cap out at about 4 4-drops, but there are cases where your cards are just so strong you want to play them all. So Arlen, of course, is a pretty strong rare for us. We've got Grizzly Ghoul, who's at base a 4-mana 4/3 trampler that will often be a 5/4 or larger. We've got Giza, who's just a pretty strong bomb rare. Or I don't know if bomb is the right term, but it's 4-mana 4/4 with a huge upside on it. We've got another 4-mana 4/4 that flashbacks. Then we've got Dawnheart Rejuvenator. This is the card that I'm probably least happy about playing, but if I want to splash the red, I need at least one source of extra mana fixing in this deck, I think. So, if I was very greedy, I could have cut this card. But the thing, though, about it is we are a little heavy on 4-drops, but we're a little light on 5-drops, often like 2 5-drops. And you can always play one of your strong 4-drops, if they're all quite good. You can play a strong 4-drop on turn 5 next turn. I call this cheating the curve, where if you have enough in a slot, you can play it on the next turn. And so if they're all strong, and our 4-drops, except for the Dawnheart Rejuvenator, are all very strong, I wouldn't be sad to play any of these cards on turn 5 if I had to. Our 5-drop here is Blood Tithe Collector. It's a 5-mana 3/4 flyer that also just gives you a card, takes a card away from them, but puts you up a card when you play it. I'm always looking for card advantage in Limited. And then on 6, we've got a bunch of bombs. So we've got Dreadhound, which fits in with the kind of self-mill theme of our deck. There's definitely some mill stuff going on. Graveyard matters. We've got our bomb and Lord of the Forsaken, which is really nice. And speaking of a combo here, these are quite nice together. And also just once again, 6 mana, 6/6 trampler, no complaints. And then usually 6 is where I put my X creatures. This is a card that is going to be pretty big when you cast it. It has power and toughness equal to graveyard. Plus, you can self-mill a few creatures. This also does fix your curve a little bit too. I don't mind playing this on 5, where X equals 3 at all. So totally a fine option. And looking down at our spells, we've got just a bunch of removal. We've got Olivia's Midnight Ambush. We've got Cathartic Pyre. We've got Duel for Dominance. We've got Crawl from the Cellar. This is not a removal spell, but when you're self-milling so much, this card gets a little better. You get your best cards out of your graveyard, and you can flashback it if you self-mill past it, so it's essential a free card you get to draw, basically. And you also it also just gives you some card advantage in the long game. And then 2 removal spells, the Moonrager Slash and the Defenestrate, and then another card which is just card advantage from the graveyard, right? You play it once, you get your best card back, you flash it back, you get a strong card back again. Lets you chain your removal spells, so it's extra good given all the removal that we opened up here. And so here's how the deck turned out. Now I will note, I wanted to build with Arlen, and I think at a pre-release it's really important to play the cards you're excited about. So I'm excited about Arlen. I want to have fun at the pre-release, so I just put Arlen in here because I got to play with red. I got to play my 2 other removal spells. If I was to build the optimized version of this deck, I would probably cut my 3 red cards and make my mana a lot better. Because then you could cut the Moonrager Slash and the Cathartic Pyre and the Arlen and also the Dawnheart Rejuvenator because you don't need the mana fixing anymore. And then there's a few cards I left on the cutting edge or on the cutting room floor I want to go through. I'd probably play another 2-drop in the Timberland Guide. I'd probably play this combat trick here in Might of the Old Ways. It's a +2/+2 trick that can also draw you a card. I'd play one of these 2 5-drops, I would imagine, either the More Corrupt Behemoth or the Tireless Hauler. And this was a hard cut for me to defend the Celestis. It is a great trick, but especially the green in our 3-color deck was pushing it a little bit for me, and we needed to cut some non-creatures. But that's kind of how I went about building my deck. And I'll note that the final version is 17 land or 23 cards, which will enable me to play 17 lands in my deck. And I think this deck is pretty strong. It's got a lot of removal spells. It's got a decent mana curve, not a perfect one, but a decent mana curve. And it's got some pretty exciting bombs in like Lord of the Forsaken, Arlen, if you get it down on early enough, Giza, and so on. I am often worried about splashing for cards like Arlen, which are cards you want to be able to play on curve, a 4-drop that requires your splash. But it's just so strong if you have it that I figured I would give it a try here. So that's how I built this deck. But the great thing about Sealed is, there's a lot of ways we could have taken this, right? These are the cards the colors that I identified as strongest. But, if I wanted to go into blue, if I was like blue is the way I want to go, well, that's an option I could have totally taken down, or white, or any of the other color combinations. And, I kind of eliminated these just because they weren't as deep as I wanted, and it didn't have the removal spells I wanted. But you could have played them, and it wouldn't have been the end of the world. So you can also go in with kind of a strategy that you're going for. Last thing I want to note is I do just want to go back to this archetype card, right? I knew I was central in green-black, and this really did help me out. Knowing that black-green is life and death really keyed me into looking for those self-mill cards. So anyway, that's how I build the Seal deck. That's what's important to me when building and kind of how I would go about this process. If you have any questions about it, please let me know in the comments down below, and I'm happy to go through them. And also, if you enjoyed this kind of like open up all the packs, build through things, it's my first time doing it for a pre-release primer, and I'd love to know what you thought of this style. So let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again soon. And in the meantime, have a great time preparing for the Midnight Hunt pre-release. You got this. Dark Ascension then followed up with 5 more curses, including 2 more Curses Matters cards, in Curse of Misfortunes and Curse of Thirst. And so the sets came out, and curses were received all right. They were flavor wins, and definitely felt right, but understandably, being enchanted